All right, let's get into this. We're going to talk about a nation that has, unbelievable wealth. But it's got this one huge critical vulnerability, and that's water. And really, that's the whole paradox of Saudi Arabia, right? You've got this kingdom that's literally built on oil money, but it's staring down the barrel of a water crisis so bad it could derail everything. And what do you do when you have that much money and a problem that big? Well, you try something absolutely wild. One of the most ambitious engineering projects ever. I want you to think about this number. 0. That's how many natural, permanent rivers exist in the entire country. Just let that sink in. We're talking about the largest nation on Earth that doesn't have a single permanent river. So you gotta ask, how on earth does a country that's almost entirely scorching desert, we're talking 98%, support a population that's just booming? The numbers here, they really tell the story. So look at this. The population just skyrockets from 3 million to over 26 million today. And at the same time, the capital, Riyadh, gets barely any rain, like 116 millimeters a year. That's nothing. So for decades, their solution wasn't from the sky. Nope. It was hidden, deep, deep under the sand. All right, so they had this hidden source of water. And their first big solution, well, it seemed like a great idea at the time, but as you'll see, it kind of created an even bigger headache down the road. They decided to tap into something called fossil water. So what is fossil water? I mean, just like the name says, it's ancient. It's groundwater that's been trapped in these deep underground pockets for millions of years. And here's the kicker. It's a one-and-done resource. Once you use it, it's gone forever. For decades, this stuff provided something like 70% of all the water in the country. It was, quite literally, their lifeline. Which brings us to this perfect analogy. It really is like using a battery that you can never, ever recharge. You know there's a limit, but then a massive government decision back in the 70s basically hit the fast-forward button on draining that battery, pushing this incredibly precious, finite resource right to the edge. So here's what happened. They decided they wanted to be self-sufficient in food, which sounds like a noble goal, right? They launched this huge national project to grow their own wheat in the middle of the desert. And it was, well, an ecological disaster. By 2003, farming was sucking up a mind-blowing 85% of all their water. And then, in 2016, NASA drops this bombshell. The kingdom was losing 2 trillion liters of that irreplaceable fossil water every single year. I mean, look at this chart. It says it all. 85%. That's how much water was being poured onto desert wheat fields. It was completely, totally unsustainable. The government had to pull the plug. They basically slammed the brakes on the whole project and locked away what little fossil water they had left for dire emergencies only. Okay, so their ancient wells are now off limits. They've hit a wall. So what do? They decide to embark on one of the most just audacious engineering projects in human history. Their new motto was basically, if nature didn't give you a river, build one yourself. And they did. They literally decided to build their own river. But, not a river you can see. It's this enormous, sprawling underground network of pipes. And get this, it's 12,000 kilometers long. That is twice the length of the entire Nile River. It's designed to pump an incredible 9.4 billion liters of fresh water every single day, from the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf straight to their cities. So that brings up the big question, right? You've got the pipes, but how do you actually turn all that salty seawater into billions of liters of fresh, drinkable water? Well, the answer is a process called desalination, and they're doing it on a scale that's just hard to even imagine. And they do it using 2 really cool, cutting-edge technologies. Okay, so method number 1 is called multi-stage flash distillation. It sounds complicated, but the basic idea is super simple. It's really just a gigantic, industrial version of boiling a pot of water on your stove and collecting the steam. They heat up seawater in these huge steel tanks, then whoosh it into a low-pressure chamber where it instantly flashes into steam. That steam, that's your pure water. They collect it, condense it, and boom, fresh water. It's kind of brute force, but man, does it work on a huge scale. Now, the second method is, well, it's a lot more elegant. It's called reverse osmosis. And it's actually inspired by biology. What they do is they take seawater and force it at super high pressure against the special membrane. And the pores in this membrane are so unbelievably tiny that they block 99% of everything: salt, minerals, even viruses. The only thing that can squeeze through is the pure H2O molecule. It's an incredibly slick way to filter water, literally molecule by molecule. Okay, so this all sounds amazing, right? Problem solved. Well, not exactly. Creating this much fresh water, it turns out, comes with a pretty hefty environmental price tag. Because you have to ask yourself, you've taken out the pure water, but what happens to all the salt you left behind? Think about it like this. Every liter of seawater has about 35 grams of salt in it. That doesn't sound like a lot, right? Maybe a couple tablespoons? But when you start talking about billions of liters a day, the numbers just become absolutely staggering. So to get your 9.4 billion liters of fresh water every day, you are left with 329,000 tons of this toxic salty waste. It's called brine. Now, to put that number in perspective for you, that is the same weight as 1,645 blue whales. And that's not per year or per month. That's every single day. And this is the dark side of desalination. What do they do with all that brine? Well, they pump it right back into the sea. And this isn't just salty water. It's a super concentrated, often chemical-filled sludge. It makes the ocean water saltier, it makes it warmer, and it creates these vast dead zones where nothing can live. It absolutely wrecks fragile ecosystems like coral reefs. So, okay, they've solved one crisis, only to create another one. So what now? How is the kingdom dealing with this new salty problem while still trying to secure its future? The good news is they know it's a big deal, and they're pouring a ton of money into finding solutions. And they're coming up with some pretty clever ideas. Things like deep-sea multi-diffusers, which are basically giant sprinkler systems on the ocean floor to spread the brine out so it's not so concentrated. And this is really cool. They're looking into brine mining. They're trying to figure out how to extract valuable stuff like magnesium and potassium right out of the waste. You'd literally be turning pollution into a product. And their goal is crystal clear. By 2030, they want 100% of the country's water to come from desalination. I mean, when you look at the whole picture, pumping water thousands of feet up the sides of mountains, building the world's largest pipeline network, it's obvious that Saudi Arabia is going all in, betting its entire future on human ingenuity. This artificial river, it's so much more than just pipes and pumps. It's a declaration. It's a statement to the world and to nature itself. So, can technology really conquer geography? This incredible project gives us one very loud and very, very expensive answer. But it also forces us to ask some really tough questions, What is the true long-term cost of re-engineering our planet on this scale? It's an amazing testament to what we can do, for sure. But it's also a huge cautionary tale about the delicate balance we're playing with, especially as more and more of the world starts looking to the oceans as the only answer to survival.